Welcome to Champions Mojo Weekly Podcast with your hosts Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker, where you'll hear authentic, entertaining stories, tips, lessons, and wisdom from champions to inspire, motivate, and educate you. You'll get the tools you need for becoming a true champion in your own life. And now, your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Champions Mojo Podcast, where I'm co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hey, Maria, I am so excited that today we are going to talk about regaining form after an illness or injury. And we have a telephonic interview with Mitzi Kremer, a 1988 U.S. Olympic swimming medalist. There will be much more on Mitzi, but before we bring her in, hello, Maria, my friend. How are you today?
I am doing great. I'm so excited about this episode because I think, again, this is just like obstacles. Everyone has an experience with illness or injury or something that comes up in their life and they feel like they get behind. So that's going to be a fun subject to talk about. And I'm really honored to be talking to Mitzi. This is going to be a great show.
Yes. And before we bring Mitzi in, we have we like to trade one story each. Do you have something that is something that you've overcome in regaining your form, either in real life or athletics?
Sure. I mean, I think anybody who's competed as an athlete has had illness or something happen. The story that comes to mind actually happened a long time ago. I was really just getting into running. It was after Kelly got me involved in my first 5K, and then I did several other 5Ks, and I was getting faster and faster. And that was extremely exciting. And I was starting to do speed work, and I just overdid it. And I had a stress fracture in my pelvis. And I was just so discouraged because it was really the first time in my life that I became, I was an athlete. I was what did Jim say? I was a reborn athlete, because as a young person I wasn't. So this was very exciting for me, and it just came to a halt because I had to stop. I couldn't do anything, couldn't walk, couldn't run. So yeah, that was, the 8, 10, 12 weeks it took me to get back were difficult. And those of us who are addicted to athletics know that when you can't work out, you just aren't a nice person. So I think this is a really appropriate and interesting topic. What about you, Kelly? I know you've also had issues like that.
Yeah, Maria, was that before or after you qualified for the Boston Marathon?
Before.
So you were kind of just fell in love with getting in shape and doing, well, and then you got hit with that. I remember I didn't know, couldn't put it before or after, but yeah. So that is one of the things that you touched on, that having, not being able to do the thing that you're loving so much, and while you're trying to recover from something difficult, whether that's an illness or an injury, is it makes it twice as bad. And we will probably do another show on just that. But right now when we talk to Mitzi, we're going to hear a lot of the things that she overcame to make the Olympic team. And my story of illness is one of the things that connects me to you the most, Maria. And just the love that I have for you was you were the person who held my hand and was there for me through my breast cancer. And that is, something that just made our friendship even better, and our love. And so, yeah, my recovery from illness was, I got diagnosed with breast cancer in October of 2016. And it was shocking, because we have no history of breast cancer in our family. I've, just never thought it was just never on my radar. So I was lucky, had a lumpectomy, had 2 lumps removed and 3 lymph nodes, but it was kind of shocking. And I was in the middle of a big swimming season. I had just turned into a new age group, which we know as adult athletes, when you age up, you just love it because you're in the bottom of your age group. So I was really trying to break a lot of records in my age group for master swimming, and yet I got hit with with this diagnosis. So I had to go through surgery and recovery. And you drove 14 hours and went through the surgery with me, and were there really helping me so much. But the way that I got through that was just focusing on swimming. I mean, I was terrified. I didn't, know what to expect, but I just kept thinking the vision of the future, just a vision of the future. I wanted to see myself back in the pool. And I did contact other swimmers who had gone through breast cancer and were performing really well. And, they were super helpful to me. And then, I was back in the pool 3.5 weeks after I had had surgery. Fortunately, swimming is the number one rehab for breast cancer patients. After their wounds are healed, the doctors love you to get in and circle your arms and swim around. So 3.5 weeks after my surgery, I was back actually in a meet, and I set some regional records, and I set some number one national times. And I actually, again, going back to our first podcast, your mess is your message, or the obstacle is the path. I started a website called Swimming Through Breast Cancer. And, that I focused on that a little bit while I was recovering. I created that website, and I connected some of my other swimmers that had helped me and asked them, would you be willing to help others? And so my information is still out there. If someone is, a competitive swimmer or just a recreational swimmer going through breast cancer, my email's there. And so that Swimming Through Breast Cancer was something that really was the obstacle is the path. So that's how I got through it. And, I'm cancer free now and swimming again. And I feel, very lucky that I caught it early.
I remember we were sitting there talking to the physician, and Kelly was talking about scheduling the surgery so that she could have maximum pre-surgery workout time and then still be able to compete in a certain meet. And I was like, I was sitting there thinking, this is a champion. This is a person who looks at this as just an obstacle. And I was, because I was afraid for Kelly as well. And she did exactly what she said she was going to do. She worked out really hard. She had the surgery. She recovered just as she should have. And then she went back and started winning.
Well, thanks, Maria. I just really could not have done it without you. You are the, like I always said, you're the voice in my head and the love and support there. And, recently a big swimming news piece is that Nathan Adrian, our, greatest of all time U.S. sprinter, just what an icon in swimming and a gentleman and a wonderful person, was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And I think it came out of the blue too, because you think about these athletes that are just super healthy. We eat healthy, we exercise, and he was diagnosed. And I just saw from his tweets and his, press releases that I knew he was going to be just fine. So he had his surgery. And then I think he was like 2 weeks later, I saw him on a treadmill, and, I think he's already back in the water, and it's been like, a month. So I have no doubt that he's, made a full recovery and is going to make our 2020 Olympic team. And so I think, when you have any injury or illness, that you've got to have that vision of yourself recovering. I mean, even if you're laying in the hospital in a full body cast, or, you just got to think, okay, someday I'm going to be riding my bike again, or swimming again, or painting again, or, taking care of my kids, or whatever, it is that pulls you forward and that makes you happy and gives you those positive emotions.
Yeah. And I think being an athlete teaches you how to deal with, especially a serious illness like you're describing. It's like, you just got to do what you got to do and do the next thing. Whereas I think people who haven't had an opportunity to compete as adults, they sometimes don't know what to do when they hit a big illness or injury. They don't know how to fight it. But we as athletes, we know.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because, you can just not be an athlete, and hopefully we have some non-athletes or some people like you that, hey, maybe I want to dip my toe in the pool. They can think, they have a big trip up in their life, a big illness or a big injury, and then just think about the things that they love to do and that they want to be doing those things again. And I think that will have the same effect as saying, oh, I want to swim in that meet, or I want to do this bike race. And that, I want to play with my kids again, or I want to, get on my motorcycle and ride, or whatever it is that makes them happy. So
Yeah. So it's what you're talking about is visualizing a bright and happy future.
yes, yes. And that is, I think, a definite way to regain form and illness. Well, we have babbled on here too much before we're going to introduce Mitzi, and she has got some amazing stories. So let's get to it. I want to tell our listeners just a glimpse about Mitzi's swimming career. Besides winning an Olympic bronze medal in the 4x100 free relay for the U.S., Mitzi was a 2-time NCAA champion, a 5-time ACC champion, and a longtime member of our U.S. national team, swimming in lots of international competitions. Those are just some nice statistics, not all of them, but no doubt they don't tell the full story of what a real champion Mitzi is. In the late 1980s, Mitzi was a household name, truly as recognizable in the swimming community as Katie Ledecky is today, for similar reasons. Mitzi was on our Olympic team off of her 100 freestyle, but she was also the NCAA champion for Clemson University in the 200 and 500 free as well. Recently, she was inducted into the Clemson Athletic Hall of Fame. Mitzi's range of being able to swim the 100 through the distance events was her special and rare gift, and I want to talk about that a little later. But first, let's welcome Mitzi to the show.
Yes, welcome, Mitzi. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This is a lot of fun.
So, Mitzi, before Maria and I start peppering you with questions, I just want to share a quick little story that kind of shows how dominant your swimming was back then and how it continues 30 years later. This past winter, I went to a swim meet at North Carolina State University's pool. And of course, all pools have record boards. And I looked up on the record board, and you still hold one of the pool records there. And I just was blown away. That's 33 years later, and it's still there. And this is not some slouch pool or slouch team. I mean, this is the NC State women are ranked 4th in the nation this year. The ACC swims through there. Leah Smith, who was on our Olympic team for the 400 free, swims there. I think you hold the 200 and or the 500. I'm not 100% sure since the end of the year through this year, but I was just blown away that there was a record up there with Olympians swimming in that pool, like current Olympians. 2016, Leah Smith swims in that pool. So I just think that was a cool little personal statistic that I wanted to share. It's not to be, so Mitzi is not to, yeah, you're welcome, not to be taken lightly. So,
Mitzi, obviously you're an incredible swimmer. Why don't you tell us where you're from and how you got started in swimming?
Well, I'm from Titusville, Florida, which is a small town on the east coast of Florida, best known for where the rockets go up, the best visual to go watch the rockets go up. And I got into swimming because my older brother and sister were swimming, and I kind of followed suit. But a big part of that was I am asthmatic, and I spent a lot of time when I was 2 and 3 in the hospitals, in the oxygen tents, because back then we didn't have all the great medicines that are available now. And the doctors highly recommended to my parents that I should swim because it would help for my lung capacity. And I fell in love with it. I mean, I enjoyed it. And my parents were wonderful because they got me a coach to get the foundation of my stroke techniques, and he wouldn't let me swim a meet until I could prove that I had done a skill in each 4 of those strokes. And so that was really important that the foundation was there. And then when I showed proficiency in the swimming, I had a coach who was like, you don't get to swim 8 and under events. You're going to swim in the seniors because I want you to learn that winning a race is not the important thing. It is about that you improve your time, that you improve your racing, and that you go out there and just learn how to compete. And I'm thankful for him having done that. And that's part of the reason why I started doing distance events early on, is because swimming in the seniors, you don't get to do 25s. And you don't, only the 50 free. So I had to swim the 200 free, and I swam my first mile when I was like 8 or 9. And this was not torture. This was something I wanted to do. And I think that foundation was something that helped me throughout my swimming career.
Sounds like you had incredible support.
Oh, amazing. And, you know, throughout the years, my parents never pushed me. In fact, for my mom, I had to miss one day a week to do something other than swimming. And I didn't do doubles. The only time that I ever did a morning practice was in high school because I was in the marching band and I had to do afternoon marching band practice. So my coach would come out in the morning so that I could swim and not miss practice for the day. But it wasn't until I was a junior in high school that my mom was finally like, okay, if you want to go all 6 days, you can go all 6 days.
So Mitzi, that's great. At what point did you and your coach, and I don't know who was your coach?
Well, I had several. I mean, I started off with Coach Parker when I was little. Chuck Sott was my coach until I was 10, Maureen Hughes until I was 11, and then Jim Hahn from 11 to 18. So he's the one who really transitioned me as a swimmer.
So at what point did you, this is a really realistic shot at making the Olympics? Like, did you see it? Did you think of that from a young age? Or when did it all become kind of something you were really going for?
Okay, well, I watched Nadia Comaneci do her gymnastics, and I am way too tall and not flexible enough to be a gymnast. But I thought that was, the coolest thing to see. And so I would always say I want to go to the Olympics. And, that was something, kids say. And my parents were like, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. When I was 16, I made the Olympic trial cuts, and I had a really bad shoulder injury. And it was recommended that I take a couple months out. And so I talked to the doctor, and I said, I don't know if I'll ever get to go try out for the Olympic team, later, 4 years later when I'm 20. So we went on a plan to get me through it, and I went to trials, and I got 12. And at that point, I was like, maybe in 4 years I could do it. But right after that meet, I had to sit out for 3 months because of my shoulder. So I kind of put that on the back burner, and it wasn't until I went to Clemson and made some huge drops that I think it might be a possibility. But even then, there were so many things that happened that, it's still surreal to me that I got that opportunity.
That is so cool. Like you said, so many kids think, oh, I'd like to. I remember Nadia Comaneci very well. And thinking, wow, wouldn't it be amazing? And that's just incredible that you got there. And it sounds like you had some injuries as obstacles, but was that your biggest obstacle to overcome, injury, or were there some other obstacles in getting there?
Well, it was primarily injuries and illnesses. I mean, I had a shoulder problem that started when I was 15, and a knee issue that I couldn't swim breaststroke really after that point. But my shoulder limited me a lot in what I could do training. And then when I was a senior in high school, I had surgery for endometriosis, and that carried all the way through the end of my swimming career. So I had to do a lot of adjustments, because when you have a surgery, you don't get to just hop right back in the pool. Right. And balance it. And, my senior year, I had looked, I got myself back rehabbed for my shoulder, and we had World Championship trials in Orlando. This was 1986. And they were picking the Goodwill Games, the, World Championship team, and a third team. And so, they with the freestyle opportunities in 100 and 200, they go down the list to top 6. And I'm thinking, okay, I'd have to be top 18 to try to make one of those teams. And at that point, I'd been in the top 16 on and off with my 2 free, that I thought, okay, I have a shot. And then right after nationals in March, I went in for a surgery that required me to be out of the water for 6 weeks. And Bob Steele was my coach at the time, and I said, it's in Orlando. I want to swim at World Championship trials just because, again, I don't know if I'll ever get that opportunity. And so I can remember being at it was the Justice Aquatic Center at the time, and 2 days before the World Championship meet, Bob and my mom standing beside me so that I could get on the block and learn to dive back into the pool from the block. Wow. Because I had the surgery with endometriosis. It had been abdominal cut, you very limited, that took some muscle tone. So 2 days before the meet, I was just starting off the block for the first time. And, I swam and I didn't do my best time, but I got 25th, 26th. But I was just so excited about the opportunity of being at that meet and being able to say, hey, I did get a shot to try out.
That is amazing to be that close. So what got you through those surgeries, both, shoulder, you didn't have shoulder surgery, but your endometriosis surgeries and injuries? What did you tell yourself during that time? What was your focus?
Well, I ended up having 3 shoulder surgeries during my career as well. One of them, Dr. Andrews did, and he's just phenomenal. Really what it was is, it's my parents. They amazing people. My mom's no longer here, but they were just such a great foundation. My family, my brothers and sisters were just so supportive, and always being around people that said, hey, you can do it. Why not? And that was kind of the thing that my dad very much taught me at the very beginning. And I can remember being 14, or 15. I was 15 and had made senior nationals, and it was out in California. And, as a teenager, you just can be an obnoxious little brat. And my dad sat me down, and he's like, okay, back in the old days where you had the tickets with the, the paper in between, and he came out and he tore up the ticket. And said, we're not going. I said, but I have cuts. And he goes, right, but you're not, listening well to coach. I hear you're not trying as hard as you can. You're not behaving the way that we would like you to behave, and the expectations. And he's like, I don't care how fast you are. There are certain things that you need to do. And he's like, I'm proud of you for getting to this point, but you have to show me that this is really what you want to do. And that we don't have to say, hey, you have to go to practice. We don't want to have a fight with that you're not giving an attitude. And I'm going to tell you, he goes, you have a month to turn it around. And he goes, if you can, we'll go. And let me tell you, I worked my butt off for the next month, both in the water and out of the water. And that was a lesson that was, to me, and I knew my dad was serious. I mean, he was absolutely serious. If I didn't make changes, it was not going to happen. And I think just because of the way he did that, which is you have a goal, here's your steps to get there, you commit yourself to that step. Now, if you want to change your goal, and that's what he always said to me, if you just say you want to be a social swimmer, we are more than happy. You still need to go 3 days a week to have exercise. And that's what you are. But if you're going to say that this is what you want to do, you have to show that you can do that. And I think because of that, for me, it was always very clear cut. Okay, this is what I want to do. So these are the steps to get here. All right, I'm out of the water for, 2 weeks because of a surgery. That's okay. What do I need to do once I get back in, and take every opportunity in the water or in the weight room to make that practice count?
Yeah, again, it sounds like you had incredible support. Have you, as a coach, do you use that stuff with your kids?
I do. And actually, when I first started coaching, a lot of time, and I still do it today, I'll talk to my dad, and I'll say, okay, this is what I have going on with a swimmer. What do you think? And he gives me a good perspective. We talk it out. And then I talk to the parent as well as to the swimmer so that we make sure we're all on the same page. And that's the thing that I always want to stress to the swimmers I coach is your time and your performance doesn't define who you are. That just says, okay, this is what you've accomplished at this moment. But if you have a bad swim, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean you didn't try hard. That just means at that moment in time, that time wasn't there for you. Mm-hmm. So what do we have to do to make changes if this is what you want to do? And so, yeah, I hope that with the kids that they get that sense that, we're going to face obstacles, and sometimes, man, you train as hard as you can through the season, and right before it you get sick or something happens. Don't be devastated. Just go do what you can, and then let's go the next season. And you'll always find out there's always a reason that you have to go through it. And whether or not we really like the reason, it is. And I think for me, the asthma, really having to learn how to control my breathing and to relax my body really helped me behind the block with nerves.
And that's what did go through your mind when you were behind the blocks, Mitzi? Like with all that you'd gone through when you're standing back there,
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple of people, Jim Sheridan and Bob Steele, in different ways, kind of taught me about, finding a word or phrase that would be something that I could kind of hone in on. And my brother was wonderful. At 13, I would get so nervous at junior nationals. I could swear I could see my suit move. And he's like, okay, you have butterflies in your stomach. Rather than being worried, okay, just kind of sense that they're helping you get ready to swim fast. So kind of redirecting that nervous energy into, oh, this is good. This is helping me swim fast. And then I would say, as I got into senior nationals and stuff, I know this sounds really silly, but coming from a small town like Titusville, I wanted to represent that you didn't have to come from a big club or a big team or have amazing facilities that anybody could accomplish it, that I wanted to go out and prove that this could be done by anyone. And, again, at Clemson, it's a 6-lane, 25-yard pool we had, or 8-lane, 25-yard pool, but we ended up 5th in the country. Everybody would tell you, well, you can't do that now, you need a 50-meter pool. Well, no, you don't. And that's, I think, for a lot of times behind the block, I just wanted to prove that you didn't have to have all those things and still be good.
Yeah, I was reviewing your NCAA champion results where you won NCAAs, and, there you were from Clemson, which is, a small little school in South Carolina, and you've stood up next to and faced down those girls from Stanford and Cal and Texas and, the big name swim schools. And, that's beautiful. So I definitely hear where you're coming from on that. What, yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, Kelly. Yeah. Since you're, as I guess a post, I don't know how to put it positively, but after your swim career, it has transitioned into a coaching career or the other things you're doing. How have you applied, I guess, what you've learned as a swimmer into other challenges? And Kelly and I try to be really real, so if you could share some, challenges that you've had to encourage others who, may be coming off of a different career and transitioning, that would be great.
I think, again, it goes back to goal setting. Is finding your passion. So when I was finishing up my swimming career, I did start coaching, and I said, this is something I want to do, an opportunity to give back. And when I really looked at it, I said, I never want coaching to be something that is my job. I don't want to be reliant on, this being what I make a living off of. And so I've always kept coaching as that side, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's part of an aquatic director position, but something that I could always go on the deck and say, I do this because I want to. And to me, that was always very important, because that was the same way as a swimmer. I go on the deck because this is what I want to do. No one's making me do it. So that was one thing, is to kind of keep that separate. But I would say everything I learned in swimming is, applied to daily life. Like, so when you have an adversity, okay, let me sit back, and instead of getting all wound up, how do I do it? Let me make my pro-con list. Let me see, this is where I am today. This is where I'd like to be in 3 months. How do I get there? And I recently, about 3 years ago, changed, left doing aquatic directing and program directing, and I was trying to find, what did I want to do? So I did a couple of different things, and then I ended up doing a sub-teaching as an instructional aide in an ESE program. And I fell in love with it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the same way of helping kids, but in the classroom instead of in the pool. So now, but I waited until I found that thing. I wasn't like, okay, I have to just pick the first thing that comes. And it took me about 1.5 years to find this. And then, of course, you have to take the necessary classes and certifications to be able to do it. And I'm still learning. It's my second year doing this. But it is so much fun, and it's a constant opportunity to learn. Just like as a coach, every day I walk on the pool deck, I'm going to learn something new. About a swimmer, about a stroke technique, how to solve a problem, how to work with kids. And now with the age of technology, as coaches, we definitely have to be much more aware of what's going on in the kids' lives. And so to me, you take everything you learn as an athlete and you apply it. and just don't get frustrated, because we can't control everything. We can only control what we can.
That's beautiful.
Yes, yes. So, so you're coaching now back kind of in your home area of Brevard County.
Yes.
What is your vision for Brevard County swimming, or, what changes have you seen in the swimming community just in general here, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Brevard County, like when I grew up, there were a lot of programs, and whether or not it was, how fast everybody was, there was just opportunity for everybody to swim. And so about 4 years ago, one of the girls I grew up with, Chris Beadle, who was also a national swimmer from Brevard County, had moved back in, and we started working for high school, for Cocoa High School. And Cocoa High School has over 90% free or reduced lunch. So it's not a lot of opportunity for the kids to do sports outside of high school. And we really looked, because we had these kids that were, wanting to do a little bit more, but there was nothing really affordable for them. So we started our program along with Mary Hoyt, who's a 1984 Olympian from Canada, in Cocoa Beach. And our goal was, we wanted to give kids an opportunity to swim regardless of if they could afford it or not. So if they wanted to pursue it, there would be a spot for them to do it. And we did it through AAU. And then we've evolved it into where it's AAU and USA Swimming. And we went, and I'll tell you, it's amazing. We'll be 3 years in April. We have 8 kids going to NCSAs next week. We took 24 kids to senior championships. Wow. And with a lot of these kids, they were swimming on other programs, but because they weren't necessarily the best or showed that, amazing talent, I don't think and they didn't have a lot of confidence in themselves. They weren't making that next step. And as they came into our program, it was to give them the joy of swimming back. Have fun doing what you're doing. And as we saw them smile and enjoying what they were doing, and, being engaged, and this is what I want to do, we saw their times get better. And so we're seeing more and more kids swimming, not just for our team, but for all the other local teams. And I think, that kind of change of, you don't have to be the fastest in the pool to enjoy and love the sport of swimming.
That's beautiful.
And you are just as important as, the person who wins, great, they're going to get a lot of points. But that person who may come dead last, who's never swam before, dove off the block for the first time doing anything outside their comfort zone, that is just as big of an accomplishment. And I think celebrating that and being able to celebrate that, not only as coaches but as teammates, that changes the dynamic of what swimming is. And I'm seeing that shift in our county. And I'm hoping, we get to the point that every school is going, oh my gosh, we have to do cuts because we have so many kids. Maybe we have to add a JV program,
That is wonderful.
I love that. I love that. I love to hear your heart for children and just for the joy of swimming. That's really great, Mitzi.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And again, that's my parents.
That's wonderful. And so I have to get to the lead-in question that I had, because I know a lot of our swimming listeners. What do you think made you have that rare ability to be able to race the 100 to the distance like Katie Ledecky does today, which is really rare?
Okay, well, so I started off as distance, and I so desperately wanted to be a sprinter, but did not have that speed. I would say probably is because, honestly, with the injuries, I couldn't swim many of the other strokes. And then when you swim the 500,000 and mile, there are no relay opportunities. And to me, relays are the best. So having to bring down and swim 50, 100, 200 opened up being able to swim on relays. And that's really what it is that was the focus. I want to be on a relay.
That's beautiful. And I think that is a lot of Katie Ledecky's motivation. Wasn't that what she said? She wanted to be on the 4x100 free relay for the U.S.?
Yes, she did. And I trust me, I understand that. Because, as much fun as distance is, it is not the same as being behind the block with 3 other people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're talking to a distance swimmer, and I was never on any relays.
Yeah, it's the same with distance running or distance cycling, where we spend so much time alone. And then when we get these opportunities to be competing with a little group of 3 or 4 others, it's so fun.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different, perspective to it. Yeah.
All right. Well, last question before we just open it up and let you speak about anything you want is what advice would you give to young swimmers who want to make the Olympics?
Long term. And, as unfortunate as the 1980 boycott was for all the athletes involved, and it was horrendous. One of the things it did for women's swimming was realize that females could swim well past 16. The pros that are out there now swimming in their 20s, late 20s, early 30s are definitely showing that a woman doesn't have to stop competing when they're 16 or 17. And so I think as a female or as a male, any age, you go into a sport, know that it's a long-term journey. Great if you can make a team at 16, that's wonderful. But to me, your maturity, the development in the whole sport, you're going to be so much stronger at 20, 22, 23. So take every step along the way and enjoy it. Go from the, C time to the B time to the double B time. And don't look at, oh my gosh, I have to be at this meet at this age or else I'm done with swimming. Because we all develop differently. And we all hit our stride differently. And so that would be my big thing is patience and appreciate every single step along the way.
That's an awesome answer. And that's so true. You just never know what age somebody's going to click over and make that big jump into greatness.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And as a person who didn't really get into athletics until I was an adult and didn't really become good at anything until I was in my 50s, absolutely. You have your whole life.
Right. Yeah. You do, and that's what I love about like master swimming is because these kids can see adults come out still enjoying, still pushing themselves, still going for best times, and realize like, oh, there is no expiration to my participation in the sport.
Great. Maria, you want to ask the last question?
Well, is there anything that you would like to tell us or that's to say in general that we haven't covered already to people who might be listening? Any encouragement you particularly? I mean, you've been so encouraging all the way through, but any other message for us, Mitzi?
I would like to share something that was with my mom. When I went to 92 trials and I had to have the major shoulder surgery 90 and my endometriosis surgery was a little bit longer, I knew going into 92 trials that I just physically wasn't there. And I swam the meet and I finished the meet and I went upstairs to see my mom in Indianapolis and she goes, I've been thinking all week, what do I say to you? You've done so much more than any of us ever thought you would do. You've had so many great experiences and I know it's over. So what do I say to you? And then she said there had been a young man watching who was in a wheelchair. And she said, what do you think that young man would give to spend a day or even 30 seconds in the pool completely unencumbered and just be there? And she goes, he doesn't wake up with that choice. And she said, but every single day of your life, you've woken up with the choice of, I want to go compete in swimming, I want to participate. And she said, that's a precious gift that you have. And when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, how do I ever feel bad about myself, But it also made me realize, what can I do as a person in the sport of swimming to open up avenues for people who don't necessarily think that they can swim? Somebody who is with Down syndrome or missing a limb or in a wheelchair or has a special need, how do we accommodate and encourage them to be in the water? And that would be one thing that I would really ask everybody to kind of think and say, what do I do to make every single person that walks on that pool deck or rolls onto that pool deck feel like they can be part of this program, part of the team, and I can do something to make their day even better?
Wow. That is so terrific and
beautiful.
So inspiring. Thank you, Mitzi.
Very inspiring.
Beautiful.
Well, Mitzi, Go ahead.
So blessed with my parents.
That sounds like, yes, very, very
Yeah,
lucky.
you sound like you won the parent lottery there.
Oh, I did.
Well, we really appreciate you spending time with us today, and we'll let you get back to your busy schedule. I know you were actually coming straight off of the pool deck to do this interview, and I'm sure you have an afternoon practice this afternoon. So the swimming life continues for you, and we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you,
No
Mitzi.
problem. Thank you.
It's an honor to meet you, Mitzi. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And Kelly, what you do for our sport, I don't know if it's told enough, but thank you.
Well,
you are an inspiration always to everyone.
Oh, you're the best.
The truth.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Wow, what a great interview. Mitzi is just such a positive and incredible person. I really enjoyed chatting with her.
Oh, me too. That was just fantastic. And she is such a gift to the swimming community from the day she set foot in the pool till all that she's accomplished. And she's still just a huge one of our great resources in our swimming community today. So I feel so fortunate we got to speak with Mitzi.
Now it's time for the quote of the week. This one from Gabby Douglas. The hard days are the best because that's where champions are made.
We are so grateful that you spent this time with us today, and we hope that you heard something that inspired, motivated, and educated you. Please see below for the copy of show notes or any links or important information referenced here. I'm signing off for myself and champion co-host Kelly Pallas. We hope you'll join us again soon, and we know you can be a champion. Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast, designed to make you feel inspired, motivated, and educated. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Visit championsmojo.com to learn more.